Wow, this is such a powerful narrative, intensely personal, relatable, and honestly infuriating in the best way. You can feel every beat of the emotion, from the quiet pride of being the dependable one to the gut punch of being dismissed over something as simple and human as wanting to see your musical hero. The structure is great, too. It flows like a story you'd hear over coffee and instantly want to stand up and cheer for. A few thoughts if you're polishing this up or considering next steps. What's working really well? Voice and tone. It reads like a dramatic monologue with just enough interiority to make us root for Kelly without slowing the pace. Pacing. The tension builds naturally, from the nerve-wracking email to the lawyer's confident smirk. Details. Little things like the navy blue Hausen vest and polished wood and old books bring it all to life. Suggestions, only if you're editing or expanding. Emotional resolution. We get to the turning point with the lawyer, but it might be satisfying to hint at what's coming. Did Kelly sue? Was there a settlement? Even a sentence like, "We filed the claim the next day," would be a satisfying button. Reflection. Even just a single line. What did Kelly learn? Would she be so loyal again? Does she feel free now? Luke's downfall. Okay, maybe this is just the reader in me wanting justice, but a line about what happened to Luke later, or might happen, would be chef's kiss. Would you want help turning this into a short story or article format? Or maybe even something for social media or a blog? Did anyone from the company follow up with a formal termination notice or offer clarity about your employment status? No, I answered, my voice steady. They didn't contact me at all. Not even to confirm what happened. Martin nodded, letting the silence underline the weight of my words. Then he turned to the judge. No warning, no write-up, no explanation, just an offhand dismissal for asking for a single day off that my client had every legal right to request. The judge looked over her glasses at Luke's side. Would the respondent like to cross-examine? Luke's lawyer stood, shuffled a few papers, and asked a few basic questions. Nothing sharp, nothing that even scratched the surface. I could tell they were floundering. They weren't prepared for someone like Martin. They certainly weren't prepared for someone like me, standing tall and unshaken. By the time closing statements came around, I could see it in Luke's posture. The arrogance was gone, replaced by discomfort, maybe even regret. But it was too late for that. Martin ended strong. This case is not just about wrongful termination. It's about a company that counted on its power being enough to silence someone. My client isn't asking for the world, she's asking for justice, and she has the receipts to back it up. The judge took it all in, thanked both sides, and said she would deliver a written decision within 10 business days. As we stepped outside into the afternoon light, I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. Martin looked at me and smiled. No matter what happens now, you stood your ground. And he was right. Because even before the decision came in, even before the damages were awarded and Helion sent that begrudging apology letter, I knew I'd already won. I had taken back my voice. I had taken back my power, and I wasn't done standing. I didn't just win, I reclaimed myself. Can you explain your employment status after that day at 1317? I took a breath. After that moment, I was no longer employed. Luke's lawyer tried to rattle me during cross-examination. You were emotional that day, weren't you? Yes, I said, but not confused. I know what being fired looks like. Then came Luke's turn. He stood, adjusted his tie, trying to channel the same smug confidence I remembered. But this time, he was on the defensive. I never fired her, he claimed. I was just trying to get her to reflect on her priorities. When she took off the vest, I was surprised. She walked out. I didn't tell her to. Martin didn't even blink. So, to clarify, you're saying asking her to remove her uniform and leave was not a dismissal? Luke faltered. It was a figure of speech. A figure of speech, Martin echoed. In front of witnesses, after denying her time off in the middle of a shift? Luke's eyes darted. She misunderstood me. Martin opened a folder. Your Honor, this is a sworn statement from 2 co-workers confirming Mr. Harper ordered Ms. Kelly to leave the premises and collected her vest himself. Luke's mouth opened, then shut. No comeback. Martin added, We'd also like to submit the company's employee handbook, which clearly outlines proper termination procedures. None were followed. The judge flipped through it, frowning. Luke seemed to shrink in his seat. The hearing wrapped within the hour. The judge didn't issue a verdict immediately. I will review the documents and deliver a written decision within 30 days, she said, her tone firm. But let me be clear, this is not a matter to take lightly. Employment rights exist for a reason. Outside, Martin clapped a hand on my shoulder. You did great. I feel like I just ran a marathon, I laughed. You held your own. That's going to matter. The world outside carried on. Coffee cups, briefcases, earbuds, but inside those walls something real had unfolded. I didn't know what the verdict would say, but I already knew what I had gained. My dignity, my voice, the strength to stand up when someone tried to make me feel small for asking for what I had earned. 21 days later, I checked the mailbox like it held a piece of my soul. Life moved on, resumes, interviews, but I was still tethered to that moment in court. Then, on a quiet Thursday, the envelope came. Cream-colored, embossed with the court's seal. My heart pounded as I opened it. The verdict was dry, formal, but every word felt like release. The court finds sufficient evidence to support the claim of unlawful dismissal. The respondent failed to follow termination protocols. The claimant is awarded 6 months' salary, compensation for unused vacation time, and legal fees. Tears blurred the words. I had won. More than that, I'd been heard. Aftermath, Martin was the first person I called. He didn't wait for me to speak. She ruled in your favor, he said. Solid ruling, no loopholes. Within 2 weeks, a lump sum hit my bank account, 6 months' wages, vacation pay, legal fees reimbursed. But money wasn't the real victory. Something unexpected happened. My story spread. A friend posted vaguely about someone who stood up to a toxic boss. It went viral. People began sharing, asking for legal resources. Days later, a former co-worker messaged me. You probably don't know this, but after what happened to you, 3 of us filed formal complaints about Luke. Turns out there were more stories. Yours was just the bravest. Brave? I never felt brave, just tired of being walked over. One day I passed the old store, now hiring signs in the windows. A new assistant manager listed. No sign of Luke. That evening he messaged me. Kelly, I heard the court ruled in your favor. I didn't mean for things to go that way. Hope you're well. No apology, no ownership, just an empty peace offering. I didn't reply. Some people don't deserve closure. Mine had already come, from a judge, a courtroom, and my own. Voice refusing to be silenced. A new chapter. A week later, I accepted a new position, customer operations lead at a mid-sized tech retail company, Novotech. They had heard about my story. On my first day, the CEO, Amelia, gave me a tour. At the end, she said, We value fairness here. You've lived through the opposite. We need that kind of awareness. Something in me softened. Not all workplaces are toxic. Not all bosses need to be feared. Some spaces let you rise. My badge read, Kelly Harper, Head of Customer Experience. And every day I walked through those glass doors not just to earn a paycheck, but to help build something better. Becoming the lesson weeks later, Amelia called me into her office. We're launching a leadership training program, she said. We want to include your story. My heart caught. You mean, with your permission, she smiled. Names changed, but the lesson? That stays. I agreed. Soon, my experience became part of Novotech's curriculum. My shame transformed into strategy. My story, once a private burden, became a public tool for change. I even filmed a short video. I didn't think asking for a day off would cost me my job, but it gave me something more valuable, a mirror, and I saw someone worth fighting for. The feedback poured in. I had a manager like that. I thought it was my fault. Your story reminded me I'm not the problem. I'll document everything from now on. And news about Houson spread too. More claims. Luke stepped down. HR restructured. Investor confidence dropped. I didn't celebrate. But I did feel peace knowing a system that hurt people was finally facing consequence. 6 months later, I stood on stage at a leadership summit, the same arena where Elton John once played. Only this time, I wasn't in the crowd. I had the mic. I ended with the words I'd once scribbled in my journal. Never let anyone convince you that silence is professionalism, that loyalty means obedience, or that your boundaries are selfish. You can be kind, dedicated, excellent, and still say, enough. As the audience rose in applause, I felt it. Not triumph, not revenge, but something deeper. Peace. That day I walked out, vest in hand. I thought I'd lost everything. But really, that was the day I finally found myself.